Today I want to show you how I went from this to this. So Monique here from Silver Paw Studio and founder of ProPetPhotog. And I recently had a large group come in for a photo session, and they allowed me to film some behind the scenes, and I wanted to talk to you about it. It kind of kept me up at night, as I'm sure big groups do for you as well. So I've written out a bunch of tips for you on your next big photo shoot. Now, this one had 2 people, 2 dogs, 2 cats, and a rabbit. It was quite the group. And they all did come to the studio. So in planning this, I had conversations before. I'd actually photographed her dog, Suave, for the recent Pity Party book that I did in my studio. And then she also graciously brought Suave to the ProPetPhotog workshop in August, and the students got to photograph Suave. So I already knew this dog pretty well, and Lauren, the owner. But we had talked for months about getting the entire family in here, her husband and everybody else. And so the day finally came. And so she let me know how they were. I knew the kitties were okay with traveling. She's about to become a veterinarian, so she understands her pets and their needs very well. So we talked about some of those things, but I hadn't actually met the rest of the animals. It'd be hard to meet everybody unless I went to their house, which is normally what I would do if I'm not quite sure like how they're going to react to this environment. So it was a little bit like, you know, kind of on the fly, some of it, but they are so knowledgeable that it went really well. But get as much information as you can about every animal and do your regular consultation. Like I always ask about health issues, knee issues, can they have the treats, all those kinds of things. For the people and the pets. So make sure about that, because a lot of people have sports injuries, say their knee or their back, and you want to know that before you make them sit or stand, you know, sit on the ground or stand uncomfortably. So planning, there's a lot of planning. And then what I often do for these type of sessions is I'm envisioning the photos I want. So first of all, you need to know that this is the main part of the session, and if it is, and for them it was to get the entire family in one image. So sometimes it's, well, we're going to bring everyone, but what if we could at least get, you know, us and the dogs? But they really wanted one of everyone. So I start sketching out. I know all my props, I know my space, and I start sketching ideas for everyone. And that's where my notebooks come in handy, is I try to sketch everything out. And I'm keeping in mind a horizontal and a vertical crop, because sometimes what happens is we come up with this big string of the people and the pets all like this, but it only can be printed as a panorama. So you want to be careful of how you're sketching this out, that it could work in a standard any size print, 16 by 20, 20 by 20, you know, square, vertical, horizontal. You want to make sure that the entire family fits within that space if you're like my studio and you're selling prints. So keep that in mind, and kind of what props that you have. So I have a big gray ottoman, which is a square, and I have a long bench, and I have a carpet that I put over in the studio space. So I had sketched out ideas for all 3 of those, including every single pet. And keeping in mind, they might want, you know, this aspect ratio for their home. Another thing is to have everything ready. When I have cats in the studio, and actually when I go on location for cats, I spray clear catnip on my shoes, on the surfaces the cats are going to be on my camera bag, because cats like bags, right? So I have clear catnip on everything, which can help calm them down. If I'd thought about it, I would have had a Feel Away diffuser in here. For dogs and cats, I make sure I have plenty of treats. We use treats for both of them, the dogs and the cats. So that came in really handy, but you need to know that ahead of time. Can they have these treats? I call them my doggy junk food or my kitty junk food. So kind of like high value in a way, but something they don't normally get. So one thing that you want to think about in here is even though our goal was to photograph the entire family as a group, I wanted to make sure I got individuals as well. So her husband was planning to come in about a half hour after she did. So we made sure we got some photos for her upcoming veterinary school graduation, for her resume. And then I made sure to take individuals of every single animal, because what I want to do is showcase each one a little bit, and then maybe on their wall they'll have the whole family and then each pet individually around the edges. This also works great in an album, so you have plenty of images for anything they might want. Christmas cards, however they want to use these images. And during the photos, make sure you have lint rollers on hand with all of these pets, and the bunny actually shed the most. The rabbit shed the most, which was kind of surprising to me. So we were constantly lint rolling the people and the surface if it needed it. And I'm sure there's going to be a little bit of hair removal in the final edited images too, so just kind of keep that in mind. But save yourself a little bit of editing by going through with the lint roller as much as possible. The other thing we did was take a lot of breaks. Sometimes we could get a few images and then the cats needed a break and then the dogs needed a break. So consider having a lot of break time built in. I have a bowl of water in the studio for them and they can run around safely. I do have some low walls, so you're watching the cats. Not all cats will get that adventuresome, but theirs look like they might. So we really kept an eye on the cats. The cats and the rabbit both had containers, crates that they were in. So if we weren't watching the cats closely, we'd put them back in their crate, and the bunny was always being held or in the crate. And the dogs all had leashes. So if I'm just photographing the cats or the rabbit, I had my assistant, Frank, holding one of them. So one of my other pieces of advice is to have a lot of helpers. So in this case, if I was taking individuals, I had the owners, of course, and Frank, my assistant, was here. And my sister Bree happened to be here working on another project for me. And at the very end, we did need her help because the dogs were getting pretty intense with the treats, and they would move immediately. If they thought the treat was over there, they were going over there. So one thing I try really hard to do is not get the treats out until later, but for some reason we got them out earlier. And so sometimes you paint yourself into a corner when you get the treats out too early, because then they're just focused on that. So having plenty of helpers is really, really great. Keeping all your settings the same. So keep especially like your light intensity and your aperture, because those are really going to affect the next thing I'm going to tell you. So keep all those consistently the same. So set them, leave them. Now, the only time I changed that when I was taking the individuals, I was zooming in, things like that. And then I just set it back to the entire group settings, because what often happens in these is you have to composite, which means take pieces from several pictures and edit them together. And to do that, and this is very not me, use a tripod. There, I said it. Plan on compositing. So I had my tripod set up in a wide shot, because I knew I could fill in, or I can have my editor fill in the backdrop and the carpet, anything outside of that frame. I wanted to shoot a little bit wider, give myself plenty of wiggle room, because I had the camera on a tripod with my 24 to 70 mil lens on, and I could go back and forth, change the hair on the people, or move the cat or the bunny around just a little, or give the dog a treat and run back to the camera. Another trick would have been using a remote, but I don't have a remote that I use here. So that could have been a good idea as well. But having your camera on a tripod makes it, and your settings, always the same. I use manual everything, manual settings on the camera and the lights. I set those. Is that it's so much easier to composite, because everything is in one place. If I only had one head swap to do, which is maybe everyone but say one cat was looking, I could easily take just that part of the cat and put it on the other one if everyone else is in exactly the same position. It's so much easier to composite when it's called locked off. So it's on the tripod and nothing's changing. None of the people moved. If an animal needed to move, the people stayed put, and me and my assistants moved the animals. And so that's another thing to keep in mind is when you're thinking you're going to composite, which on these, I would always expect to composite, always. And let your clients know that. Say, look, it's going to be a little chaotic, but that's okay. I can work with this in Photoshop. That's why we're going to take several, and I'm on a tripod, and you calmly walk them through all this. So I always just tell people, you just keep looking at the camera. Just keep looking at the camera. I will look at the animals. And another thing that you can do, which I didn't end up needing to do on this, which absolutely shocked me, was sometimes you take half of the group. So you will take a piece of tape and put it in the spot that you want everybody. And this is what I had planned out as well. If we had person A here, person B here, dog here, cat here, bunny here, you're gonna visually mark that with a piece of tape. So, for instance, if Lauren and one cat and one dog were doing pretty well, we would have everybody else get out of the studio area, and so it's less distracting, and she would be in this spot, and I would take a few pictures just of that grouping. And then she'd stay there for a second, and we'd put everybody else on the other side, maybe mark a piece of tape on the ottoman or the bench, and then she could leave with the other animals, and I would photograph him and the other pets. So I've had to do this before, and it's very helpful to mark because you want to see whether overlapping or not overlapping. And also having it on a tripod, you're not changing your angle up and down. It is really hard to composite when you've changed your angle just even a few inches up or down. Faces look very different. The other thing I could have done is just had the people and maybe the bunny and the cats and not included the dogs. And then I'd mark on the floor where I want the dogs to sit. Don't move the camera, don't change any settings. Have everyone go out, bring one dog at a time in, have the dog on that piece of tape where they would have been with everybody, and the same on the other side. So I could have composited the 5 in the middle and the 2 dogs on the outside. So keep those kind of things in mind. What I think is great is I actually, shockingly, did not have to composite. I didn't have to do any head swaps. The picture that I showed you at the beginning of the video is the picture. The only thing that we had to do was fill in the background because I shot a little bit wider and my backdrop's only so wide. And the other thing that made this so awesome is that I use Ian at Simplify Your Studio and his team. So I was able to go home, load up the photos, cull them to what I want, and just send them over to my editor with a full Photoshop edit, which I don't normally do. I usually just say Lightroom and get it ready for a client viewing, and I only do full edits once they've seen it and decided. But this is such a big session. I know I'm going to use it in marketing, maybe make a sample album. So I knew I would want a lot of them edited fully, and a lot of it's just fill in the background. No head swapping on this. So it was really nice to know I can just send it off to the editor and I will get them back because I'm very busy in my studio right now. But I know that having all of the preparation in place really is what made it go awesomely. I had the knowledge of the pets. I had the proper treats. I knew my studio. I knew my settings. I had a good relationship with the clients. I had plenty of helpers, and I gave myself plenty of time, and everybody had breaks, and I was very encouraging. So we put all these things in place, and of course having the tripod locked off. I mean, it couldn't have gone smoother. You've been seeing video of this session, and sometimes I tell people it looks chaotic, but it'll be great. Don't worry, it looks very different from my point of view than your point of view. And so I was just so happy this all came together and that they graciously let me film the session for you. It's been so fun to share this session with you. I hope it gives you ideas and some ways that you can prepare and pull off a session with, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 individuals, 5 of which being different types of animals. I hope this helps you envision your next photo session and gets it going well for you. And there's been a couple of times I've mentioned things in this video that are things that we work on in the ProPetPhotog membership. And one of the things that we have is guest speakers. So Ian with Simplify Your Studio, guest speaker in the ProPetPhotog Community Center membership. We talk about marketing, we talk about framing and sales and pricing and all of the things that I talked about in this video, we talk about every month in the ProPetPhotog Community Center membership. So if that sounds interesting to you, check into it. I have the link in the description. It's just ProPetPhotog.com and click over to Community Center. So I want to let you know that that is a resource for you as well as this free YouTube channel. All right, so if you liked this video, you're definitely going to like this one. And as always, I wish you many woofs, purrs, and TREATSs.